Welcome to Justice For, a true crime podcast hosted by two besties from Colorado, focused on bringing justice to victims by telling their stories. New episodes release every Tuesday on all major podcast platforms and YouTube. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube so you'll never miss an episode.
Trigger warning, this is a true crime podcast that does contain adult language, adult themes, and some content may be disturbing for some viewers. So please watch and listen with discretion.
Oh, the 80s. A time of big hair, shoulder pads, and honestly, some of the best music ever made. When helicopter parents weren't really a thing, so it wasn't uncommon for kids to be running around town or to spend a few days at a friend's house, go to the local lake, or carnival, all without an adult. Most parents didn't really give much thought to what their kids were doing, so much so that this was something that was played nightly on the news.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It was a simpler time when people could leave their door unlocked and they trusted their neighbors and community, and they had the mindset of nothing bad ever happens here. That is, until it does. Welcome back to Justice For. We're your hosts. I'm Jackie.
And I'm Sam. Dude, I would have thrived in the 80s, personally.
Thrived.
I mean, I thrived in the 90s, too.
But I have such frizzy hair.
You've seen my hair
I know.
blown out. That shit's wild.
I know, like we would have had effortless volume.
I would have thrived.
It would have been amazing.
Ugh.
All right. So, you ready?
I don't know.
It's a valid question.
How ready do I need to make myself?
You're ready to just not be happy.
Okay.
Every August for 1 week, the Coos County Fair comes to Myrtle Point, Oregon. And August of 1986 was no different. Myrtle Point, Oregon is a small town, a little over 20 miles inland from the coast. And by small town, I mean about 2,600 people in 1986. It's a cute town, like just nestled in the woods of Oregon. And 14-year-old Jeremy Bright and his 9-year-old sister Esty loved going to the Coos County Fair. They were spending the week in Myrtle Point with their stepdad, Ollie. And even though their mom, Diane, and Ollie weren't married anymore, and Diane and the kids had moved to Grant Pass, Oregon, a lot of Diane's family still lived in Myrtle Point area, and the kids had all their friends there. Jeremy and Essie had never missed the fair in their whole lives. So after begging their mom, Diane, she saw no harm in letting Jeremy and Essie return to Myrtle Point for the week. And it was going to be way more fun for them than just sitting at home bored while she went to school and was working. Mm-hmm. And Oli, he was a logger, meaning he left the house at 4 a.m. and was in bed early. But that wasn't a big deal because Jeremy and Essie had so many friends and family that they were just going to kind of bounce all over and do whatever. Jeremy and Essie went to the fair on August 13th with Jeremy's friend Johnny and some other kids for a while. The following day, on August 14th, was Kids' Day at the fair. So Jeremy and Esty headed out to spend all day at the fair with friends. Esty had a friend she had planned to meet there, and when they got to the fair, being the awesome big brother Jeremy is, he bought the girls all-day ride wristbands. And, I mean, at 9 years old, could you ask for a better day than, like, all day at a fair, no adults, and ultimate rides?
And it probably also wasn't as expensive as it is today.
Yeah, and of course, like, getting some extra money for some games and food and just funnel cakes all day. My favorite part of the fair.
Say less.
So around 2 p.m., Jeremy decided to go off on his own and told Esty to meet him back at the Ferris wheel at 5 p.m. And Jeremy ended up at a restaurant his aunt had just bought and was helping her get it ready to open. It wasn't going to open for a few weeks, but he was just kind of, helping out. Just before 4:45 p.m., Jeremy leaves his aunt's restaurant to head back to the fair to meet Esty. On his way, he calls his mom, Diane, from a payphone to tell her that he's on his way back to meet up with Esty. Diane tells him she will see him in 2 days. Jeremy says, "See you Saturday," and hangs up. After that phone call, Jeremy stops by a tavern owned by his uncle. His grandmother and Oli just happened to be there. And Jeremy asked Oli for some money. Then he left the tavern and headed to meet Esty at the Ferris wheel, just like he said he would. Esty and her friend were waiting at the Ferris wheel at 5 p.m. But Jeremy never shows up. So Esty finds a police officer at the fair and tells him what's going on. She tells them that Jeremy never came back to meet her And the officer tells Essie not to worry, that he's probably just off with friends and he forgot about her.
That's rude.
Yeah. And Essie's like, that's not like my brother, but the officer just wouldn't listen to her.
And
So,
she was 9? Okay.
So Essie and her friend walked home. It wasn't that far, and they knew the area and everyone knew them. Hoping that Jeremy really did just forget and that he would be at home or she would run into him at his friend's house and his friends just anywhere. But this was also really out of character for Jeremy. And he loved Esty and was always looking out for her. He was the type of kid that when he said he was going to do something, he did it. He was just very responsible and everybody knew him that way. On August 16th, Diane arrives in Myrtle Point to pick up the kids. When Diane gets into town, she goes straight to helping family, telling one of Jeremy's friends to tell him she's in town and to come find her. When Esty goes to find her mom, she tells her mom that she hasn't seen Jeremy since the day at the fair. Then Esty goes off to the parade and then back to the fair with a friend and her family. Like, Esty's living her best life right now. And her cousin then found Esty that night and was like, hey, have you seen Jeremy? Your mom's still looking for him. No one's seen him. And it wasn't until Diane had gone back to the house and noticed that Jeremy's wallet, keys, and a watch that he had just bought himself were sitting on a table in the house. And that's when she got a weird feeling. But she hadn't talked to Ollie yet, so she wasn't super worried. But Ollie had noticed that Jeremy wasn't around because of his work schedule and thought he must just be at a friend's house. Because to be honest, back then, parents didn't see the need to hover over kids all the time, especially not a 14-year-old. He said the last time he saw Jeremy was at the tavern 2 days earlier. So Diane calls around to all of her friends and family asking if they had seen him or knew where he was. But no one had seen Jeremy since he left the tavern heading to the fair on August 14th. Diane decided to wait until that night to see if Jeremy came home. Maybe he was at a friend's house and lost track of time. She knew he had to be around town somewhere, because he wouldn't have left town without his wallet and his watch and his keys. Also, the keys were to the house in Grant Pass, not in Myrtle Point. And I also want to note about his wallet and everything. He had just gotten a wallet and this watch, so he wasn't really used to carrying them on him all the time, and he didn't need it in Myrtle Point this week. So that being left there was not a massive red flag, but it was a little weird since no one had seen him in 2 days.
That's why my face was so confused.
I knew. Yep, and that's why I didn't stop, because I was like, I'll get there for you. I thought that was really weird too until...
Yeah, like, wouldn't he have had that shit on him? But it makes sense if he just got it, he's not used to carrying it. He probably still had everything he needed, just packets. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's directly from Diane and Esty. Like, that is how that was.
Okay.
But when Jeremy didn't show up that night, Diane decided to call the Myrtle Point Police Department and report him missing. But the police didn't seem worried at all. They wouldn't even file a missing persons report, telling her that he probably ran away. It was even suggested that he succumbed to the romantic allure of the carnival, and that he would surface when the fair ended.
Fuck off.
But Diane was like, this is nonsense. Jeremy wouldn't just leave Esty or run off without telling anyone.
Okay.
Okay, do you have a question, comment, concern?
Just, normal.
Remember, we're in 1986.
Still 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days and he's 14.
Maybe longer than that.
Okay. So, let me keep going then. The next day, the fair left town and still no Jeremy. But that didn't get the police to do a missing persons report. In fact, they wouldn't even acknowledge that Jeremy was missing until the 19th of August. A whole 5 days after Jeremy went missing. When they said something in the newspaper, but it wasn't even on the front page. It was like on page 2 or 3, and it was buried in a little blurb. It definitely wasn't catching
the business section.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't catching the public's attention. All right.
Dude, cops in the 80s, man.
And the police weren't really doing anything else, still thinking he's just a runaway. So it was on Diane and her family and friends to look for Jeremy, make flyers to hand out, go around asking if anyone saw Jeremy or knew what happened to him. Since we already established that this is a small town where Diane, Jeremy, and Essie had lived their whole lives till recently, you can guess that it didn't take long for rumors about what happened to Jeremy or where he could be to start going around. But before we get into the rumors, I want to say that Esty told police officers that she saw Jeremy talking with 2 guys and that she saw him leave with them. But police didn't believe her. It's unclear when this was, if she saw them around that 2 p.m. time or just before that 5 p.m. when she still had a few more minutes before meeting up with Jeremy at the Ferris wheel. Also, all of the sightings of Jeremy are from August 14th. Not a single person saw him on the 15th or after. There are quite a few reports of seeing Jeremy in a car with 2 men that afternoon. Those are all of the known sightings of Jeremy that day. These are all very important for things that we will talk about going forward.
Bruh. These fucking cops, though, dude.
Yeah.
I don't want to believe a 9-year-old. Fuck off.
Just wait. We're still not done with them. But now onto the rumors. So, of course, Jeremy running away or joining the carnival was one people loved. Jeremy had recently moved in the middle of 8th grade to a new school. Diane had gotten divorced again, and now he was in a new town. Apparently in the 80s, that was the perfect storm to be a runaway. But Diane said that was laughable because Jeremy was doing great, other than his grades slipping, but that could just be from moving schools in the middle of the year and not teaching the exact same curriculum. He had even received an Outstanding Achievement Award from his new coach at his new school. And another little bit of information, Jeremy is 6 foot and 140 pounds. He is a very athletic build, and he played basketball, baseball, and football. So, our chances of somebody just easily scooping him up, he's not a tiny little 14-year-old boy.
Yeah. And, like, the fact that no one fucking saw him either.
Like, he's a 6 foot, 140 pound incoming freshman.
Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah. And he had just tried out or was going to try out for the high school basketball team. I wasn't exactly sure. We knew his exact stats because he had just been, like, measured for his physical or for the team. And he was so excited for high school to start. He loved his sister Esty, and he would never leave her like that. Diane had made the move to Grants Pass to better her and her children's lives. She didn't want to be stuck tending bar forever. So she moved to Grant Pass for a better job and to go to school. And I get that.
Absolutely.
So another rumor was that Jeremy went to a party and was given a beer laced with something. Now, that necessarily wouldn't be fatal unless Jeremy had a heart murmur, which he did in fact have a heart murmur.
Huh.
This laced beer supposedly led to him overdosing and then his body being hidden. Many rumors involved the same 4 names. These 4 people, according to Diane, were not upstanding citizens, if you know what I mean. And were kind of the town troublemakers. An anonymous tip from an inmate at the jail said that Jeremy and Johnny and friends were at a local swimming hole when some local teens showed up and started harassing Jeremy and his friends. One of them had a gun and began shooting at the water for target practice. Jeremy was accidentally shot, and in a panic, he was taken to a cabin in the woods, and over the next 2 weeks, they tried to nurse him back to health, but Jeremy ended up dying, and the boys then carried him out of the house and buried him on the property somewhere. This rumor involved all the names that had been going around town.
From someone in a jail.
A jail informant.
How in the fuck do they know?
Exactly. And so that's why I question it, except for the fact that why does someone in jail know all the people involved in this? When the rumors are all, I know small town, and the rumors are happening outside of it, and I'm sure they could get back in there to them, but it's just kind of a little...
How does he even know that Jeremy's gone? Like, I don't...
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and these are all the rumors, and according to Diane, this was the worst rumor for her, because this was the one that just kept replaying in her mind. It would be the most horrible, that her son was out there suffering for 2 weeks. There was a rumor that he was either suffering for 2 days or 2 weeks while they tried to mend him back before he died. Yeah. And Diane said that this was the absolute worst one that she ever heard, and it was the one that went around the most.
Mm-hmm. Well, probably also because that one, he got killed rather than some type of accident.
Yes.
Also, hold on. How is he playing all these sports if he has a heart murmur?
I mean, you can have different kinds of heart murmurs.
Okay.
But also, it's the 80s. Are we really connecting having a heart murmur and playing sports? I don't know if we're there yet.
I don't know. They allowed concussions.
Yeah.
to just be there. So, all right.
So, who are these town troublemakers, you may ask?
Johnny.
No, Johnny was Jeremy's best friend.
Son of a bitch.
Yes. We know for sure 2 of them were Terry Steinhoff and his cousin David Steinhoff. And Jeremy knew Terry because he used to babysit him. And the other 2 are Hoyt Richardson and a guy named Eddie. We don't know much about Eddie. We do know that the Steinhoff family had a reputation of being less than upstanding citizens, to say the least. As for Hoyt Richardson, here's what Esty had to say about him. I've heard conflicting info on him. The detectives say he's nice, not which one they talk, not sure which one they talk to, but many of the locals say that Hoyt is anything but nice.
Wait. Hoyt?
Mm-hmm.
Hoyt. I mean, I like the name, but every Hoyt I've ever met has been a dick. Eddie?
Yes. Terry and David. Steinhoff.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not going to remember these. I'll remember
You will.
2.
We're going to keep saying them.
Fantastic.
What seemed to give a bit of weight to this rumor was the fact that Terry and David's name had been coming up already, and Jeremy was supposedly seen in Terry's truck that day with David by a few different people. Also, Esty saying she saw her brother talking to 2 guys that day, and he had left with them. But then police talked to Cecilia Fish, one of Johnny's sisters. Because of the time, I'm not sure if this happened on the night of the 14th going into the 15th, because it's at like midnight, 1 a.m., or the night of the 15th going into the 16th. So the 14th was when he was at the fair?
Yep.
Okay. So we don't know which one just because of how the timing is and how long this is ago. Either way, what happened is still chilling. She said that she was leaving her sister's apartment and they saw David entering the building and his shirt was covered in blood. Shocked, Cecilia asked him if he was okay. He just laughed and responded, "Oh, this? That happened hours ago." Continued laughing as he stumbled into another apartment. About 30 minutes later, Cecilia's other sister said that Johnny came into her apartment absolutely terrified and shaking, and he absolutely refused to talk about it. So, obviously we have rumors swirling that are wild, but a lot of them have common denominators. The Steinhoff boys, Hoyt Richardson, and Eddie, Jeremy accidentally dying, and someone covering it up. So after 3 months, the Myrtle Point police decide it's finally time to ask the Coos County Sheriff's Department for help.
Real quick, did you say how old the Steinhoff brothers, Hoyt and Eddie, are?
They're a little bit older.
Okay. Because it was unclear.
Yeah, they're just they're like,
men, or
so
like...
Jeremy's like 14 and the Steinhoff boys and them, they'd probably be more like 18, 19. In that range. And I'm saying because like with Terry babysitting him, I think Terry was older than the other boys, but they're not that much older because
they're not like 30-year-old men.
Okay. No, they're like, you know, it's like those boys who like graduated high school, but also like didn't grow up from graduating high school and still run around town.
They peaked in high school, so they just hung out.
Like the guys in Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, and Diane has said many times over the years that she believes that the sheriff's department had been asked to help sooner, things would be different.
Would they? Would they have been though?
Well, if they would have taken it seriously from the beginning and talked to people, probably.
That's just the cops. That's not even the sheriffs.
No, like they wouldn't involve the sheriffs. They would not. They weren't. The police weren't even taking it serious enough for that. It wasn't. It took 3 months for them to be like, oh. Maybe he really is missing and we should get some help now.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but...
So, numerous wells and ponds in the area were searched, but there was no sign of Jeremy anywhere. It's like he had just vanished into thin air. 10 days after Jeremy's disappearance, David Steinhoff got arrested for being in possession of a firearm and first-degree burglary of a home near the Coos County Fairgrounds. David was later released on his own recognizance, basically meaning he pled guilty and promised to come back to court and no bail was necessary. Which is honestly kind of wild to me that he's arrested for that, and the police knew damn well he was in all these rumors going around town that involved a gun.
But
I know they're just rumors,
circumstantial,
but at the same time, you know.
Yeah. But
But other than rumors and theories, nothing else was emerging in the investigation for Jeremy. Not a piece of clothing, not one of his Nike shoes that Diane just bought him while they were back to school shopping. Nothing. Eventually, Terry and David would be considered persons of interest in Jeremy's disappearance. Not suspects, just persons of interest. In January of 1989, Unsolved Mysteries did an episode on Jeremy's disappearance. Did you ever watch Unsolved Mysteries?
Of course I did.
I don't think I've watched it since, like, high school.
I've watched it in the past few years because they released new episodes. And obviously I always watch the alien ones.
Well, yes. I also forgot how horrible the reenactments were.
How cheesy they are.
Like,
God,
horribly
I love 'em.
wonderful.
I love them.
Yes, and this episode very much was it. Like,
maybe that's what I should strive to be, is like one of those reenacting actresses.
the so in this they do the reenactment of like Jeremy like recovering on a couch after the wound, and then like him like being carried out. But my favorite one is like him having what's supposed to be David bust through the door in the bloody shirt, and like the way he laughs and like walks into this room. It's, you guys are gonna have to go watch it. It's super great.
I want to go watch it.
Yeah, it's why I had to. It's why I said that's what he said the
You
way
have
I
to tell
did
me-
because of the
You have to
reenactment.
tell me the season and all that, because I want to go watch it so
Oh,
bad.
it's gonna be linked. So, I will say that the episode did have some inaccuracies in it. And so it will sound slightly different than our episode. The family has corrected them since in online postings. And I was really confused about this until I saw a discussion on how sometimes shows like Unsolved Mysteries will get a fact or two intentionally wrong, like a time or a day of an event. This is so they can weed through all the tips better. And it doesn't hurt certain parts of the current investigation. So they will intentionally misreport something, knowing that the actual person or somebody who knows something will be like, no. And also because a lot of criminals want to correct it and they get really offended when things are wrong. But also, yeah, so I thought that was really interesting.
How have I never thought about that?
I didn't think about that either, but if you think about how sometimes there's inaccuracies and things like that, it makes sense.
That makes so much sense.
So that was something fun I learned. And so in Jeremy's episode, they don't have him going to the tavern till like 9:45 p.m., which doesn't line up with him supposedly supposed to be meeting Essie at 5 p.m. at the fair. And they also have him at the fair with Johnny that day when he went to the fair with Johnny the day before.
Yeah.
So just little things in there. And he actually got 2 Unsolved Mystery episodes. One was made a few years later. And
To like correct.
no,
things?
just to keep his name out there.
Oh, rad.
Just because it was still unsolved.
Rad.
Spoilers.
I said it was still unsolved.
I know.
I mean, if it's on Unsolved Mysteries,
I know.
you can
that's
only
just-
guess.
yeah, I know.
So getting Unsolved Mysteries to come out to do an episode on Jeremy was amazing for Diane and Essie. They were so full of hope that it would get someone to talk. That's all they needed, was for one person to say something. After all, Myrtle Point was a town of just over 2,500 people. Everyone knew everyone, and Jeremy had the run of that town starting at 5 years old. Everyone knew him. He was a popular kid, well-liked by kids and adults, and surely whatever happened to Jeremy couldn't be kept a secret forever. Or could it? The week after Jeremy's Unsolved Mysteries episode aired, Terry Steinhoff was arrested for murder. Don't get too excited, though, because it had absolutely nothing to do with Jeremy.
Steinhoff.
Terry stabbed 32-year-old Patricia Morris with a pocket knife and then dumped her body over the bridge into some bushes. All because she rejected his advances at the bar.
And some people still wonder why women will choose the bear.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
So, Terry was convicted of Patricia's murder and was sentenced to prison without the possibility of parole. Or with the possibility of parole, sorry.
Oh, with it?
With the possibility of parole.
Yeah, big.
Which is wild to me, considering he told police that if he ever got out of prison, he would eviscerate the relative who told them where the pocket knife was that he used to kill Patricia.
I mean, he can still get parole or like have the option of it.
Yes.
And then never actually be granted it because of that.
Yes.
So, me.
Terry was asked numerous times about Jeremy's disappearance, and he always refused to talk about Jeremy. Every time Terry went before the parole board, he was denied. So it could be assumed that he never talked about Jeremy, as not to hurt his chances at getting paroled. But we will never really know because Terry died from a heroin overdose in 2007 while in prison. Terry was considered a large person of interest in Jeremy's case.
Son of a bitch.
Oh, yeah. And another tragic loss to Jeremy's case, 4 of Jeremy's friends that he was hanging out that week, some of them possibly at the time of his disappearance, all died in a car accident in 1988. Speaking of Jeremy's friends that he was hanging out with that week, I want to talk more about Johnny.
Johnny?
Last place we left Johnny was in his sister's apartment, terrified and refusing to talk about what happened.
Yeah.
I didn't forget about that.
I didn't either.
This is where I'm going to add in the final theory/rumor, whichever one you would like to call it. Esty, Jeremy's sister, is very active online about Jeremy's case. And I found her in a Websleuth forum about Jeremy's case. Esty and another person have been working very diligently on this thread to correct misinformation and to answer questions we all have. So this is taken from there and also some things that she has posted on the Jeremy Bright Facebook page. This is literally from Esty.
Rad.
I will say when I mentioned the other guy that she can't remember his name, that's Eddie. But in this post, she just couldn't remember. So the story that I have heard from numerous people that seems most plausible to me. I have been told there were 4 guys involved, Terry Steinhoff, David Steinhoff, Hoyt Richardson, and one other guy. The 4 guys took Jeremy and 3 of his friends. It may have only been Jeremy and Johnny, but I've heard 2 other names, to the woods and victimized them. Jeremy threatened to tell Ollie what had happened, and the guys panicked because Ollie was a logger who knew the backcountry well, and they were afraid of what Ollie would do if it was found out, and they shot him. Later that night, Johnny appeared at his sister's house, freaked out. The sister thought that Johnny had gotten bad drugs and kept saying that they had to stay out of the windows or something would happen to them. That same night, Johnny's other sister, Cecilia, ran into David Steinhoff covered in blood. He said he had gotten into a fight with his girlfriend. Cecilia went to the police and was told that David had been in a fight with his girlfriend's cat, and that's where the blood had come from, and the scratches. But Cecilia says that there was way too much blood on him to come from just scratches. After that night, Johnny was never the same. His parents took him to therapists to try to figure out what happened with no success. They stated whatever Johnny knew had been so traumatic and buried so deep that he may never be able to recall what happened. One time when Johnny was passing through town, this was many years later after Johnny became a drug addict, alcoholic transient, a relative picked him up and was giving him a ride to Roseburg. As they came around a corner, Johnny made a comment, "If they want to find Jeremy, they should look up there," and then clammed up again. Was he talking to himself and didn't realize what he said? When I asked a relative about that area, I was told that after Jeremy disappeared, they had gone to that area after hearing stuff around town. There was an old abandoned house there, and they picked up a bloody sleeping bag that was turned over to the police. Did it have something to do with Jeremy's disappearance? That same night Jeremy disappeared, the 4th guy, I can't think of his name at the moment, my notes are packed, came home. His girlfriend at the time, who's now his wife, thought it was strange that the guy came in through the back door, put his clothes in the washing machine, and headed to the shower. The girlfriend went and looked in the washer, and the clothes had blood on them. This same person also had a gun that he asked someone else to hide. That person called the police and turned the gun in. The police currently have that weapon in their possession. Is that the weapon that killed Jeremy? That's Esty's entire post on it. That is what she thinks is most plausible, with her own questions in there. And so like I said, the other guy she's referring to, I believe, is Eddie. And I honestly think that this is the most likely theory. And I want to discuss it with you. But before we do, I need to tell you one more thing. And once again, it's directly from Esty. Johnny unfortunately passed away in January 2011. He was homeless and found under a bridge in California. Whatever information he had went with him. The other 2 friends I haven't heard much about since that time. The only reason that I can think that they wouldn't come forward is due to the stigma of being victimized in the way that they were. If they really were there, I pray that they have had the strength and courage to come forward, even after all this time. I think this whole time researching this episode, I was trying to figure out a theory, and as soon as I read that one, I thought that it was the most plausible theory about what happened to him. I have something to tell you later that will help that too.
Okay.
But what do you think about that?
I don't know. Like, my mind is just...
It's a lot.
Yeah.
You want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. After Johnny's death, SD posted this to the Jeremy Facebook page. I was pretty shaken by the news of Johnny's passing. On one hand, he is now at peace. On the other hand, we may have lost the last connection to answers. Johnny, may you now rest in peace. You no longer have to carry the burden that has haunted you all these years. You and Jeremy, best friends, now reunited. Please say a prayer for Jeremy's family. They lost him 24 and a half years ago, and now they're going through the pain of losing him again. Like, it's everybody has just died in this who was around back then. It's crazy. It's like some Final Destination up in here.
Yeah. Like, anyone who would know that wasn't the ones involved are gone.
Like the bad ones involved that we think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with so many people gone that were either persons of interest or possibly eyewitnesses or victims themselves, police were getting pretty desperate to keep this case from going completely cold. So they questioned Terry Steinhoff's father on his deathbed. And this is what Essie said he had to say. Terry Steinhoff's father was also questioned on his deathbed by one of the detectives on Jeremy's case. Old man Steinhoff, I think his name is Stan, told the detectives that he would not rat out his son and would take the knowledge of Jeremy's disappearance to the grave. After old man Steinhoff died and his property was sold, Diane said the new owners let the sheriff's department run all sorts of search equipment, cadaver dogs through there, and they turned up nothing. Of course, it was over 20 years later. I have been blessed with how hard the sheriffs have tried to solve this. They got a cold start a full 3 months after I asked for help. Unfortunately, 90 days is a lifetime for evidence. Diane and Esty have never stopped looking for Jeremy. They have never stopped trying to find new ways to get help and get his name out there. But having no evidence makes it hard for them to get anyone to help with Jeremy's case. Unfortunately, there is nothing to go off of except fourth and fifth hand accounts of events. There's no DNA, there's no crime scene, and there's nothing physical. As for David, the other Steinhoff involved in all of this has remained in Coos County over the years, and he definitely hasn't been staying out of trouble. As recently as 2009, he was arrested for breaking into the house of someone he knows and taking their car keys and car. Also for failing to register as a sex offender. And that part right there is why I also believe heavily in the final rumor/theory of the boys being sexually assaulted. Because there was also rumors in the town of that kind of abuse with the Steinhoffs. Rumors. So that is also a little bit of the supporting, is that one of the surviving persons of interest is also a sex offender.
What about Hoyt?
I think Hoyt is still married to his that chick from back then.
I thought that was Eddie.
Oh yeah, that is Eddie. I haven't gotten anything else on Hoyt. Like, that was, I tried, Essie mentioned him here or there, but like it really wasn't much that we have on that.
So, essentially, what you're telling me right now is that unless these three men decide to speak the fuck up, we're never gonna know.
Yeah.
Cool.
Or they find him.
The wife, or... How?
And by some miracle, his body or remains are come across.
Yeah.
Oh, I have more.
Proceed.
I think Diane said it best, though. Jeremy never fit into any of their statistics. We didn't fit into anyone's criteria for help. Teens missing was met with nonchalance and dismissals in the 80s. Because of that attitude alone, there is 3 unsolved missing persons cases from Coos County alone for the summer of 1986. Because of this nonchalance, Jeremy's family celebrates an annually sad birthday without him. He has been gone since he was 14 years old in 1986. Yesterday, he would have been 52. I just didn't have it in me to face it. That's a lot of birthdays. Too many. Jeremy, you are loved and missed beyond measure. Speaking of Jeremy's birthday, I want to say he was born on May 25th, and in 1983, just 3 years before his disappearance, May 25th became National Missing Children's Day. Yeah. But now, can I tell you what Diane was talking about with the other missing persons cases? Because that's fun. I know.
Okay.
So it's kind of ironic that Jeremy's disappearance wasn't taken seriously right away, considering, like, his birthday is literally Missing Child's Day.
Yeah.
And it was recently made that. And it's also strange to think about in our day and age with all of the Amber Alerts we have and so many other ways to just instantly spread the word of a missing child. But we see far too many cases where the police think the kid is the runaway and it just dismisses it. When, in reality, if they would have taken seriously, who knows the outcome that could have been different. As for the 2 other unsolved missing persons cases from the summer of 1986 in Coos County that are still, to this day, unsolved. 18-year-old Joy Shields, and I couldn't find the circumstances for her disappearance, but she disappeared. Like, I looked on the Facebook page. They don't have it in there. I looked in her obituary. I looked underneath NamUs. I mean, I looked everywhere, and I could not find how she disappeared, just that she did. And 28-year-old Kirby Bessie, he was last seen at the Blue Moon Bar. All 3 cases disappeared without a trace, no evidence. All a little weird for me, but they also aren't similar in victim type.
Yeah.
But there is quite a bit of unsolved deaths, missing persons in the Coos County area of Oregon in the years surrounding these disappearances as well. That are similar, like just vanished.
So we're not moving to Oregon.
No.
Okay. Not that it was on our list, but
Yeah. So
we're not going there.
in February of 2010,
No, Jesus.
SD sends Jeremy's info to NamUs, the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. And in September of 2010, she was notified that Jeremy was officially listed in the NamUs system. They have 2 age-progressed photos of Jeremy, and we're going to have those posted for you guys as well. Jeremy also has one of the highest starred profiles. I guess that they do stars based on how much information you can plug in and put in about them. And he's, like, one in, like, the top for, like, amount of information. Like I said, I tried to look up Joy in there, and they didn't even say where or how she went missing. At least with Kirby, they said where he went missing from. Yeah. So that was just interesting. So I didn't know that that was something in NamUs and how that kind of all worked for that. Also, around 2010, the Oregon State Patrol Crime Lab took over Jeremy's case. They had been waiting for funding to process anything they receive or find that may have been missed by locals back then. Diane said law enforcement has worked hard for many years following hundreds upon hundreds of leads. She has very much switched her opinion on the police from those unsolved mystery days till now. They've been working with them a lot. And in 2011 was the 25th anniversary of Jeremy's disappearance. They decided to finally hold a formal memorial for Jeremy. And his family did a big balloon release, and Diane and Esty were there along with Esty's husband and her children, Jeremy's nieces and nephews. And in March of 2014, Diane posted this update on the Facebook page. Just a short little update. I spoke with Sergeant Looney at length just the other day. He assured me that he has followed up on all credible information that comes through his office, many times very quietly and surreptitiously, but followed up. There have been a few real odd ones lately, and he has still followed up. Also got a call, actually the same day, from NamUs, letting me know that we've outlasted yet another worker, but have been lucky enough to stay with the peer view of Mr. Charles' assistance. So, she is familiar with the longevity and somewhat aware of details. Bottom line, still no news, but keep praying. And sadly, this is where Jeremy's case stands today. Unsolved, with no current leads or evidence, and most of the individuals involved deceased or not talking. There are still people out there with secondhand knowledge, though. There could also be witnesses, ones that we don't even know about, still too scared to say anything. There are so many unanswered questions, which I think is the hardest for Diane. In 2020, she said, did someone promise Jeremy something? Did someone entice him to go for a while that he never returned from? The part of not ever knowing is that, in my mind's eye, I see him in just about every scenario. I'm not sure that the parents of other missing children feel the same. It's a horror that never quits invading our nightmares. It's just horrible as a mom to not know where your kid is or what happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, I can't imagine that.
Just not knowing.
Yeah.
The not knowing is what would break me.
Mm-hmm.
At least knowing you know.
Yeah.
And he's been missing for 38 years. That is 38 years of not knowing where your 14-year-old is.
Bro, that makes me feel so old.
It does.
That's, yeah. So they've never deemed him as deceased, right?
No, judges never ruled. I don't think they've ever ruled that he's deceased. They officially did a memorial for him.
Okay.
But I haven't read any of that in there. He is just very actively still missing. It's not a cold case.
Yeah.
It's not a cold case.
It
It sounds like one, but it's not.
I am just so confused. I'm very conflicted up in my noggin here. Because, like, I feel like there's circumstantial evidence, but obviously not enough. It's just he said, she said type stuff.
Yeah.
How have they found literally nothing?
Because they weren't looking and no one knew for 2 days.
Yeah.
We don't have cameras. We have, and people aren't, no one knew, so no one's going to be able to recall all of that. Your days are running together.
Like months later, after tips had come in, after the rumor mill started, everything. If
I don't
they're
know how they still
searching
haven't
everywhere,
found him.
That's what I'm saying, is
Like,
that they haven't found literally anything.
And same for these other ones who went missing that summer. Absolutely nothing. Not a piece of clothing, not blood, not a thing, nothing.
We've said this before. People don't just disappear like that.
They don't. They do not just vanish into thin air. Which is why we still have the age progressed photos.
Yes. So, Oregon is on the coast. How far in Oregon is this town?
We're like 20 minutes inland, like 20 miles inland from the coast.
So, there's
and it's like tucked in like a wooded area.
There's a very big possibility that these people may have somehow ended up in the ocean, like
taking
Dexter
him out
style.
Yeah. We don't know.
All right, man.
Although Jeremy is assumed deceased at this point, he's not declared, just assumed. And it seems to be a cold case. His case is open, and anyone with information about Jeremy is encouraged to contact Detective Dan Looney with the Coos County Sheriff's Office at 396-3121, and his extension is 378. Jeremy Bright was 14 years old when he disappeared from Myrtle Point, Oregon. The last time a family member spoke with him was about 5 p.m. on August 14th, 1986. He was 6 feet tall, weighed 140 pounds, brown hair, and green eyes. He has a scar on his forehead, a scar under his nose, a mole on his chin. He was last seen wearing a black windbreaker jacket, black Nike shoes with red shoelaces. Jeremy's grandmother, Betty, his father, Joe, several uncles and aunts, and his stepfather, Ole, have all passed without knowing what happened to Jeremy.
Fuck, dude.
We do not have justice for Jeremy or for his family.
No.
We have to have hope that one day we will be able to say that we have justice for Jeremy. This is why we do what we do. Someone knows something, and the more people who talk about it, the more that could be remembered or could be connected as important that someone thought was useless. So please share Jeremy's story so he can be laid to rest properly with his family. And I want to leave y'all with a quote from Esty. For those out there who know what happened to Jeremy, the secret cannot and will not be kept forever. People are talking, and I am getting information. My number 1 mission is to find Jeremy and lay him to rest properly. My number 2 mission is to find out who did it. People may have kept the secret all these years, but eventually everyone cracks under the pressure.
Period.
Snaps for SD.
Period.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed hanging out with us, please hit that subscribe and follow button and let us know what you think. Happen to Jeremy in the comments on Facebook and the Spotify poll, and leave us a review if you think we're awesome.
We are awesome.
Because I think we're awesome.
We're awesome.
If you haven't already checked out our website, justice4podcast.com, go do it. You can find all of our episodes, links to everything on social media, as well as...
And pictures.
Yes, pictures! We also have a tab on there where you can submit a case. So if there's something you have saw in the headlines and you don't want to research it, send it to us and we'll do it. And then we'll tell you about it.
Yes.
Go follow us on everything. TikTok, we're hilarious.
Yeah.
Go follow us on TikTok.
Yeah.
And yeah. You got anything to add?
Bro, I'm still so confused. I got nothing.
I confused her, guys. I'm really happy. I'm stumped her.
She's so proud.
I am so proud.
Every time she breaks me or confuses me.
Because she does it to me a lot.
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Do the thing.
Okay. Thank you guys again. We love you. Please be safe out there. Love you. Okay. Bye.